So, I'm a big fan of David F. Sandberg's Shazam for a number of reasons. It's been proven that horror directors make the best superhero movies, and I admire and appreciate the level of transparency that he maintains with his creative processes, even as his films become bigger and bigger. This is a guy who started out making films on YouTube and is now making $80 million superhero movies for Warner Brothers, while still keeping his channel active to this day. I find him and his career super inspiring. It's kind of the dream, and if you're an aspiring filmmaker, I very highly recommend checking out his work. Features, short films, behind the scenes videos, you won't regret it. There are so many endearing qualities to his Shazam. The awesome cast and wonderful family dynamic that the entire film is built around, the way it balances the larger-than-life action with the heartfelt, intimate core of the story, the fact that Shazam sings along to Eye of the Tiger on the rocky steps while shooting lightning from his hands. But as time has passed since I first saw the movie in the spring of 2019, there's one thing in particular that I find so appealing about Shazam. One thing that sets it apart from so many of its contemporaries, from the larger media landscape, and from our social climate in general. It's, in my eyes, the true secret to its success, which is the fact that Shazam does not apologize for itself. Let's back it up a little bit. Shazam, or Captain Marvel originally, before that got confusing, is a weird character. You're not going to find too many heroes like him. He's a young boy who, when he says a word, a name, Shazam! Becomes an adult superhero with powers comparable to those of Superman. His origins have ties to Greek mythology, and some of his main villains include a mad scientist, a telekinetic alien worm, and a dastardly fiend who goes by the name of Mr. Banjo. His books, especially the earlier Silver Age era, leaned into this bizarre and abnormal nature of the character and his world, making for strange story after strange story. I've been a fan of the character for a while. One Christmas, when I was really little, I got these huge Captain Marvel comics. They were reprints from the 70s, they had photos in the back of the CBS show from early in that decade, but the comics themselves were from the 40s. They were some of the original stories of the character. I fell in love with how weird and unique they all felt, how exciting it was to follow a hero so different from any other. I saw myself in Billy, a young kid who just wanted to grow up, to be taller, to be better, to take on the Dr. Savanas of my world. I really latched on to the wacky tone of the comics and the pure joy that I got from reading them. So naturally, when a big-budget Hollywood adaptation of the character was announced, I was a little skeptical and concerned that that weirdness would be sanded down around the edges into a more stereotypical, more marketable, more mainstream superhero movie. I had already seen a bit of this with the New 52 take on the character, which included some updates that I liked, but also changed Billy's characterization in a few ways that I did not. So I was a little afraid they would do something similar with the film. But to my surprise and delight, as I sat in that theater, I found that they had done no such thing. You guys, Shazam is goofy. In all the best ways. It doesn't shy from its roots in the slightest. The plot is set in motion by this wizard, dressed like this, and it only gets weirder from there. The mythological roots of the character are kept intact. One of the lead antagonistic forces of the story is the physical manifestations of the 7 deadly sins themselves, which are ripped straight from the comics, and I mean, come on, just look at them. They're the best. They even have this wonderful horror sequence where they exact revenge at the command of Sivana by eating a bunch of people in a boardroom because, again, horror directors make the best superhero movies. But featuring goofy elements is only half the battle. I saw a tweet the other day about how the MCU is fearless of being goofy, using examples of MODOK and the bird people from Thor, Love and Thunder, among others. And I simply can't agree. The MCU features goofy elements for sure, but those movies can also be the first ones to call themselves out for their own goofiness and make themselves the butt of their own joke. I mean, take MODOK for example. If you watch Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, his whole character is a joke about how he looks, or how he behaves, or how he became the way that he is. And yeah, MODOK's a bit of a kooky character, I'd let a few jokes slide. But when that's all that you believe the character is good for, it really kind of corrodes his characterization, robbing him of emotional beats or an arc, or like an actual character. This isn't to say that Marvel does this with every single goofy thing in their stories, and it's also not simply a problem within the MCU. I was watching the Oscars this weekend, and it seemed like every other joke out of Jimmy Kimmel's mouth, every joke that wasn't about Will Smith, which was 8, I kept count, was about how long the broadcast was.
You know a show is too long when even James Cameron can't sit through it.
I'm not kidding when I say that it felt like every couple of minutes it was another one.
No complaining about how long the show is. I saw all your movies. Now it's my turn to make you sit in the theater for 3.5 hours.
And every time he told one of them, yeah, I was thinking about the length of the show, but I wasn't before. Like, you're the Oscars. You only happen once a year to celebrate the absolute greatest achievements in film and All Quiet on the Western Front. I want to be watching the show. I'm choosing to watch it. You don't have to apologize for yourself and bend over backwards to make the joke on yourself. You don't have to try so hard to be cool and in on the joke. There doesn't have to be a joke. You're just exhausting yourself and you're exhausting me.
I see more and more of this as the years go by. An unnecessary self-deprecation, honestly I think as a means of self-preservation. It seems our biggest fear is being laughed at instead of with, so we laugh at ourselves before anybody else gets the chance. And contrary to that MCU tweet, I think it comes across incredibly fearfully. We treat the audience as this bully that we have to overcome by bullying ourselves first. But it doesn't have to be that way. We set the terms of our stories, so why stack all the odds against ourselves before we begin? But if there's one thing Shazam doesn't do, it's apologize for itself. There's one joke about Shazam's name when Billy is first introduced to Shazam the Wizard.
My name is Shazam.
Wait, for real?
Say the key!
But after that, the movie treats its goofier elements with a level of earnestness and sincerity that is sorely lacking from our stories today. Shazam's abilities and existence? Wonderful, awe-inspiring for these kids. Savannah's blind rage and ambition? Intimidating and well-founded. The 7 deadly sins? Genuinely frightening and grotesque. I really can't say enough good things about these guys, man. Great design, fun monster presence, top marks. There's one joke made about them that's pretty funny.
Last 2, I thought was gonna be way hotter, if I'm being honest.
But the most interesting moment with them isn't a joke at their expense or anything like that. It's Billy outsmarting them and getting Envy to expose themselves, allowing our heroes to win the fight. This moment works as well as it does because the sins have been allowed to develop as actual threats, not something to make our heroes say, he's right behind me, isn't he?
They're behind me, aren't they?
Speaking of that final fight, it's so great. This family who we've grown to care so much for over the course of the movie are all given Shazam's powers and fight together to save the day. And they crack jokes while doing so, don't get me wrong.
You're not gonna believe this, but you're actually the first villain I've ever fought. It's like kind of a huge deal for me.
But not the kind of joke we've been talking about. That self-deprecating cynicism that we can't seem to escape these days is replaced with childlike wonder. The kids are testing out their powers, fighting their first villains, and having a blast. It's just a total shift from that style of humor where you feel the need to put yourself down in a desperate plea to be cool. Shazam isn't interested in coming across as cool or in on the joke. It's fun, it's exhilarating, it's optimistic. Optimistic that the audience can let down their guard long enough to let these characters into their hearts. Optimistic that a joke can be made out of joy instead of fear. Optimistic that there's still a hint of wonder left in us, just waiting to be sparked. Watching the movie gives me the same feeling I had reading those comics as a kid. Losing myself in the story with nothing to take me out of it. Flipping from page to page, lost in the bizarre and wonderful world presented to me. I really believe that the earnestness and sincerity of Shazam is the kind of stuff we need to see more of, not just in superhero movies, but in ourselves. Don't laugh at yourself before the audience has a chance to. Stop apologizing for yourself and tell a story. Choose optimism, choose confidence. Tell a story you're passionate about and others will pick up on it. It's scary to put yourself out there. People might not like what you have to say, they might laugh at you. But you rob them of the opportunity for true connection with your art if you're not willing to stand behind your work, to stand up for you. If you're so quick to dismiss yourself, what's to stop them from doing the same? So be bold, be earnest, be fearless, be more like Shazam! Hey, thank you so much for watching the video. Subscribe to see a video like it every other Thursday, and for an episode of our podcast, The Locker Pod with Derek and Dan, every other Tuesday. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about Shazam. Are you excited for Fury of the Gods this weekend? I know I am. But that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching today. Like the video if you would, subscribe if you'd like, be kind, and take care.